afternoon everyone. Today I am going to take lecture on congenital birth defects and common surgical problems. This is a very huge topic and each and every defect can be discussed in a very broad manner, but still I have tried to conclude this lecture in as much as short as it is possible and cover up almost each and every system and most commonly developed malformations which we will see in this lecture. So basically first we will see the various definitions. What is malformation? So malformation is basically primary structural defect which arises from a localized error in the morphogenesis or during the development of the baby. During morphogenesis there is primary structural defect which results in the abnormal function of a tissue or organ. These are basically characterized into two parts: major malformations or minor malformations. The major malformations are defined as those malformations which have a cosmetic, medical or surgical significance which require any treatment, and minor malformations are defined as those which neither causes significant dysfunction nor require surgical correction, like mild cutaneous syndactyly. Deformation. A deformation is an alteration in the shape or structure of an organ that has differentiated normally. So deformation is basically a change in shape or structure of the organ from normal. Like oligohydramnios, there are chances of development of club foot due to structural deformity. Syndrome is defined as a pattern of multiple abnormalities that are related by pathophysiology and result from a common etiology. For example, Down syndrome, which occurs due to trisomy 21, which includes various numbers of malformation like congenital heart disease, esophageal atresia, etc. And then there is associations. These are the clusters of malformations that occur together more frequently than occur sporadically. So associations are usually a cluster of different malformations which are usually seen in some common problems. For example, there is vectoral association. So in vectoral association, there is a chances of development of vertebral anomaly, anal atresia, cardiac anomaly, CHD, tracheoesophageal fistula or esophageal atresia, renal anomaly or limb anomaly. Where for labeling a child with defects to be some association, there should be at least 3 malformations are required for the diagnosis. Now we will see the different most commonly appeared malformation according to the different system wise. So first taking into the respiratory system, first is a choanal atresia. So it is most common congenital anomaly of the nose. It occurs in a frequency of 1 per 7,000 live births, and 50 to 70% have some other associations of congenital anomalies, cardiac malformation, etc. 10 to 20% have association with Charcot syndrome. When to suspect? Since birth, if the baby has developed respiratory distress and cyanosis, immediately after birth, if there is choanal atresia, the baby will not be able to breathe through nose. He will be breathing through mouth and had developed respiratory distress and hypoxia which lead to cyanosis. Distressed children then cries and relieves cyanosis, becomes calmer with normal skin color. If the distressed baby do crying and then the cyanosis is relieved and baby becomes normal pink color. There will be also a difficulty in sucking and swallowing. How will you diagnose it? Bedside, you will be inability to pass a firm catheter through each nostril 3 to 4 cm into the nasopharynx. So small catheter like infant feeding tube, or we cannot pass it beyond 3 to 4 cm into the nasopharynx. And fiber optic rhinoscopy and through high resolution CT scan also we can diagnose choanal atresia. How will you treat it? Supportive treatment if baby is having difficulty in breathing and respiratory distress. Prompt placement of oral airway or intubation is required if patient is not maintaining saturation. Once airway is established, the infant can be fed by gavage feeding until breathing and eating without the assisted airway is possible. And specific treatment, if there is absence of in specific treatment, transnasal repair of the atretic part of choana is done. Stents are placed after the surgery. So supportive treatment, we have to secure the airway and maintain the oxygenation level. If patient is stable, then we can give RT feeding or gavage feeding. And in specific repair, we have to do transnasal repair of the choanal atresia and put stenting. Next is a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. It occurs in an incidence of 1 to 2000, 1 per 2000 to 1 per 5000 live birth. And associated anomalies in 30% cases are CNS anomalies, esophageal atresia, omphalocele, and cardiac lesion. It can be also seen in some severe chromosomal syndromes like trisomy 21, 13, 18, Turner syndrome. If not diagnosed at the time of birth, patient may go into respiratory failure and which can lead to death. This is a pictorial gram which shows the absence of left diaphragm and all the intra-abdominal components like stomach, intestine, some part of liver. It goes into the left. It may be left or right depending on the type of congenital diaphragmatic hernia present. It goes upward into the chest cavity, does the mediastinal shifting of the heart and toward the opposite lung. How will you suspect? The most common cardinal sign will be the patient will present with respiratory distress after birth and will have a scaphoid abdomen. Since intra-abdominal organs are moved upward into the thoracic cavity, the abdomen will be flat on scaphoid abdomen. Distress which is characterized by tachypnea, grunting, use of accessory muscle and may present with cyanosis. Scaphoid abdomen and increase in chest wall. Bowel sound may also be heard in the chest wall while auscultation and decrease in the breath heart sound, and there may be a shifting of the cardiac sounds towards the opposite side. Maximum cardiac impulse may be displaced away. Delayed presentation may present with vomiting or mild respiratory symptoms. Occasionally incarceration of the intestine process to ischemia with sepsis and shock. If there is a prolonged delay and there is obstruction of blood vasculature to the organ, there it leads to ischemia and sepsis with shock. Unrecognized patient may present with sudden infant death syndrome in infant and toddlers, but usually they are diagnosed immediately after birth, presenting with difficulty in breathing and respiratory distress with scaphoid abdomen, and by X-ray also we can diagnose. Passage of nasogastric chest X-ray, you can see the gastric fluid levels in the chest cavity and shifting of mediastinum towards the opposite side. In treatment, similar way, surgical treatment and medical management. In initial medical management, we have to aggressively give respiratory support, rapid endotracheal intubation and sedation. If baby did not cry immediately after birth and required resuscitation, so bag and mask ventilation is contraindicated in such patients with congenital diaphragmatic hernia. If baby does not cry immediately after birth or requires some resuscitation support, then we have to intubate the baby with endotracheal tube. In ventilation strategy, then if this patient we cannot give enteral feeds also, so they are usually managed by fluid management. So in ventilation strategy, conventional mechanical ventilation, they may require high frequency ventilation and ECMO. If they have a severe lung hypoplasia with severe pulmonary hypertension presenting with severe BPHN, they may require high frequency ventilation, ECMO and other treatments required for managing PPHN. Surgical repair, most centers at least wait for 48 hours after stabilization and resolution of pulmonary hypertension. Surgery is done by subcostal approach, most frequently used, and allowed good visualization of the defect. In primary repair, if the defect is small, then the organs are pushed down into the intra-abdominal cavity and suture is taken in a small hole. And if the defect is large, then a patch is kept Repair with porous polytetrafluoroethylene vortex patch done if the defect is too large. If the defect is large, patch is kept. There are high chances of recurrence rate with patches. Overall survival of live birth infant with congenital diaphragmatic hernia, if diagnosed early and treated properly, is around 67%. Then it will be discussed with laryngomalacia. It is the most common cause of laryngeal anomaly and stridor in infants and children. The most infants or children at an early age presenting with stridor and difficulty in breathing. The most common diagnosis is we have to rule out laryngomalacia. How will you suspect? So, stridor in inspiratory breathing condition, low pitch and exacerbated by any exertion, crying or agitation or feeding. So, stridor is inspiratory stridor and it is increasing when the baby is active, crying much. But if resides and decreases to some level if the baby is calm. Symptom usually appears during the first 2 weeks of life and increase in severity up to 6 months. Laryngeal reflux is commonly associated. Here in this figure in the second part, there is blocked airflow. Epiglottis is folding over the opening of airway, and this part of the larynx are usually weak, so they collapse and obstructs the inspiratory airflow. Diagnosis is done usually by flexible laryngoscopy. With associated dysphagia, contrast swallow study may be considered as airway anomalies are commonly associated with it. Treatment is expectant observation is to be done. We have to monitor the child for SpO2 and rate of respiratory distress. Laryngophalangeal reflux is commonly managed aggressively by medical management. Surgical intervention is done, endoscopic supraglottoplasty. Here in endoscopic assessment we can see the epiglottis covering the airway. Now next will be the esophageal atresia and tracheoesophageal fistula. This is also a very most common congenital anomaly of the esophagus. They are associated with advanced maternal age, European ethnicity, in obesity, low socioeconomic status, and tobacco smoking. 50% are non-syndromic, but 50% have some associations and anomalies like vectoral association. These are the different types of tracheoesophageal fistula, type A to type C. Most common is the type C variety. Let us discuss one by one. In type A variety, there is pure esophageal atresia. Esophagus is blunt from upper end and lower end. There is no fistulous connection between airway and esophagus. In type B, there is blunting of the esophagus, atretic part is there, and fistula is present from upper part of esophagus with the trachea. Type C, which is the most common type, which is seen esophageal atresia with distal tracheoesophageal fistula. Fistula is present at the lower part of the esophagus. And in type D, two fistulas are present both at the upper part and the distal part of the esophagus. And in type E, there is stenosis of the esophagus, but there is no connection or fistula present. And type H is also present there, in which both the openings are present, esophagus and respiratory, but there is fistulous connection present, which is also known as H-type fistula. So how will these babies present with esophageal atresia? There will be persistent frothing and bubbling at the nose and mouth after the birth. Patient will have episodes of coughing, cyanosis, and present with respiratory distress. Feeding will exacerbate the symptoms. As there is atretic part of the esophagus, patient is given feeding, they will cause regurgitation and vomiting and respirate with aspiration pneumonitis. In H-type fistula, which comes later in life with chronic respiratory problems. H-type fistula usually remain undiagnosed during the initial life, but they present with recurrent respiratory problems, and dye study or CT scan, they are diagnosed with H-type fistula. Diagnosis is done bedside by inability to pass nasogastric or orogastric tube. Feeding tube passes through the oral or nasal, and it should go up to the stomach, but it does not go down, and it causes coiling of feeding tube, which can be seen in the X-ray. Pure esophageal atresia, where the fistulous connection is not present in the lower part, there is airless or scaphoid abdomen may be present. H-type fistula esophagogram with contrast medium injection under pressure will demonstrate the defect. Here in this X-ray, we can see that the feeding tube does not pass up to the stomach, and it causes coiling at the upper part. Treatment in medical management, supportive management we have to give. If this patient presents with respiratory distress, we have to give oxygen support, maintain the patency of the airway. There is frequent frothing and saliva from the mouth, so we have to do suction repeatedly, and we have to keep the baby in prone position so that aspiration does not occur. If the patient present with severe respiratory distress with cyanosis with shock, then endotracheal intubation is done and mechanical ventilation is to be avoided if possible. In specific treatment, there is surgical ligation of the tracheoidal fistula, and primary end-to-end anastomosis of the esophagus is done. Upper part and lower part we have to resect and do end-to-end anastomosis, and fistula's connection between esophagus and airway is ligated. In premature infants or complicated infants, primary repair can be delayed, and fistula will be ligated, and feeding gastrostomy tube can be placed over the abdomen and upper part of the esophagus. We have to do esophagostomy at the upper part of the neck. If the gap between atretic end is more than 3 to 4 cm, primary repair cannot be done, and gastric, jejunal or colonic segment of the intestine as neoesophagus can be done. Now come to the gastrointestinal system, GIT. First is hypertrophic pyloric stenosis. So pyloric part of the stomach, there is obstruction of the pylorus part or hypertrophy. Why to suspect? The offspring of the parents who have had pyloric stenosis are at higher risk. If the earlier child has a history of pyloric stenosis, then the next offsprings also have chances of higher risk of pyloric stenosis. Incidence increases in blood groups, some blood groups of O and B. There have been association with esophageal gastroenteritis, Apert syndrome, Zellweger syndrome, trisomy 18, Smith-Clemens-Optis syndrome, and Cornelia-de-Lange syndrome. These are some syndromes which are associated in pyloric stenosis. Association has been found with use of erythromycin in neonates and also in female infants of mothers who are treated with macrolides. Patient will present with non-bilious vomiting, progressive or intermittent, may or may not be projectile, occurring immediately after feeding. If the patient is, they usually present after 2 to 3 weeks of age, presents with vomiting immediately after feeding. It may or may not be projectile and non-bilious vomiting. And after vomiting, the infant is hungry and wants to feed again. If there is persistent vomiting is present, this patient may present with hypochloremic dehydration and also hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis and dehydration due to loss of fluid and hydrogen ions, chloride. Hyperbilirubinemia unconjugated is the most common clinical association in pyloric stenosis. Diagnosis can be done bedside by palpating the pyloric mass, which is firm, movable, 2 cm, olive shaped, hard, which is best palpated on the left side and located above to the right of the umbilicus in the mid-epigastrium, the liver edge. The easiest palpatable method, it is palpated immediately after episode of vomiting. Visible peristaltic waves that progresses across the abdomen can also be seen. Ultrasound confirms the diagnosis in most. When contrast studies are performed, elongated pyloric channel, strain sign, bulging of the pyloric muscle into the antrum, shoulder sign, parallel streaks of barium in the narrowed channel, double track sign. These are the different signs seen in during the ultrasound. Shoulder sign, caterpillar sign. This is the teeth sign. So, palpation of mass and ultrasonography is useful for diagnosis pyloric stenosis. In treatment, supportive treatment, we have to give correcting fluids, acid base and electrolytes loss. Hypochloremic metabolic alkalosis should be corrected. Surgical procedure of choice is pyloromyotomy by laparoscopic technique, or we can do Ramstead procedure by transverse skin incision. Next is a duodenal atresia. Its incidence is 1 per 10,000 live birth. They account for 25 to 40% of all intestinal atresia and results from failure of recanalization of intestinal lumen during the gestation or development. These are various types: A, B, C, D and E. In A type there is a small atretic part into the duodenum. There is fibrous band and upper and lower part is connected with fibrous stand. In C type there is no connection between the upper part and lower part of the duodenum. In type D and E there is formation of duodenal web formation. When to suspect, antenatally there will be a history of polyhydramnios in 50%. 50% of infants are born preterm. All congenital anomalies are commonly seen. Congenital heart defects are seen in 30% cases. Renal anomaly can be seen in 5 to 15% of cases. Esophageal atresia can be present in 5 to 10%. Chromosomal anomaly is also present in 40% of cases, usually Down syndrome. When to suspect, the patient will present with bilious vomiting without abdominal distension noted on the first day of life. Peristalsis can be visualized early. In X-ray, diagnosis can also be done prenatally by sonography double bubble sign. In X-ray double bubble sign, there is dilated and gas-filled stomach and upper part, proximal part of the intestine denoted. Contrast study needed to exclude malrotation and volvulus. In treatment, in medical treatment, we have to give supportive care. IV fluid, nasogastric and orogastric decompression is required. IV fluid replacement is required. And echocardiography, renal ultrasound, radiology should be done to evaluate other different associations. Surgical repair, duodenostomy is done, and post-operatively a gastrotomy tube can be placed to drain the stomach and protect the airway. We have to give IV nutritional support or a jejunal tube feeding. Long-term prognosis is excellent in 90% of survival. In jejunal and ileal atresia, why to suspect maternal behaviors like which promotes the vasoconstriction and cigarette smoking, cocaine use. In jejunal ileal atresia also there is history of polyhydramnios in 30 to 35%. There is a history of familiar inheritance. Multiple births, low birth and prematurity are usually associated. These are also different types. In the intestine, jejunal ileal part, the amount of atretic part with web formation. How will they present? They will present with abdominal distension and develop rapidly after the feeding in first 12 to 24 hours and will present with bilious vomiting. 80% of fails to pass meconium in the first 24 hours of life. In diagnosis, in X-ray abdomen standing, we can see multiple air fluid level proximal to the obstruction, and contrast study to localize the obstruction is needed. Water soluble enema gastrography in differentiating the atresia from meconium ileus and Hirschsprung disease, and ultrasound is needed. Treatment, they will require resection of the dilated proximal part of the bowel, then followed by end-to-end anastomosis of the normal part of the intestine. Jejunoplasty or ileoplasty with partial excision of the web may be needed sometime. Next is the Hirschsprung disease. It is a congenital aganglionic megacolon which occurs due to the absence of ganglionic cells in the submucosa and mesenteric plexus due to arrest of the neuroblast migration. So it causes inadequate relaxation and hypertonicity of the bowel wall, which leads to intestinal obstruction. At birth, there will be a history of failure to pass meconium. They may present with bilious vomiting with feeding intolerance and abdominal distension. They may also present with chronic constipation or enterocolitis. Clinically, on rectal examination, fingers feel snug, usually empty of feces, and stools are pellet or ribbon-like. Diagnosis can be done by rectal biopsy. It is the most common gold standard for diagnosis, and anorectal manometry. In rectal biopsy, large number of hypertrophied nerve bundles stains positively for acetylcholinesterase with the absence of ganglionic cells. Barium anemia can also be done. In treatment, there is a single stage endorectal pull-through procedure, Duhamel and Swenson technique. Next is a Meckel's diverticulum with a Wittlein ligament. So it is a remnant of the embryonic yolk sac, Wittlein duct or amphilomesenteric duct, which usually normally regressed at 5th to 7th week of gestation. It is the most common congenital GI anomaly. It is present as 3 to 6 centimeter outpouching from the ileus, having ectopic acid secreting mucosa on the antimesenteric border 52 centimeter from ileocecal wall. They will usually present in the first or second year of life, painless intermittent rectal bleeding, or they may present with melanotic stool, currant jelly. Rarely partial or complete bowel obstruction, and sometimes they may present with diverticulitis or infection. Diagnosis can be done by clinical presentation and technetium 99M study. Treatment is surgical excision of the Meckel's diverticulum part. This small part outpouching from the ileum is the Meckel's diverticulum. Now in the renal systems, first we will see regarding the polycystic kidney disease. There are two types, autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive polycystic kidney disease, where usually this is the normal structure of the kidney, and this is multiple cyst development of the kidney in polycystic kidney disease. So it is the most common hereditary human kidney disease, occurring in an incidence of 1 in 1000. Both kidneys are enlarged and so cortical and medullary cyst originating from all regions of the nephron. Approximately 85% have mutation of polycystic kidney disease gene 1 on the short arm of chromosome 16, which encodes the polycystin. And another 50% have mutation of polycystic kidney disease 2 gene on the long arm of the chromosomal 4 encoding polycystin 2. Symptomatology usually occurs very late in the 4th or 5th decade of life. They may present with hypertension, hematuria, UTI, bilateral abdominal mass in the flank region. Cyst may be present in liver or pancreas, spleen and ovaries. Diagnosis can be done by ultrasound and prenatal DNA testing for gene defect. Treatment is usually supportive to control the hypertension is critical, because progression of disease is related to hypertension. So ACE inhibitor or angiotensin 2 receptor antagonists are usually given. Autosomal recessive polycystic kidney disease are usually also known as infantile polycystic kidney disease, which occurs in the infancy period. Incidence is 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 40,000 due to defect in gene TKHD1 encode 5, which encodes for fibrocystin. They presents with a bilateral flank mass, and it is also associated with oligohydramnios and pulmonary hypoplasia, which presents with respiratory distress. As the lungs are hypoplastic, there are chances of spontaneous pneumothorax are present and presenting with respiratory distress with shock. Hypertension also occurs in early neonatal life, which is difficult to control. It presents with a mixed clinical presentation of renal and hepatic. Renal presentation is systemic hypertension and renal insufficiency, presenting with ARF. Hepatosplenomegaly and gastroesophageal varices and periumbilical vein varices are present in hepatic presentation. In treatment, there is supportive management of hypertension, fluid and electrolyte correction. In case of pulmonary hypoplasia is there, they may require respiratory support or ventilatory support, and mostly may require unilateral bilateral nephrectomy and renal transplant. Next will be the vesico-ureteric reflex. Vesico-ureteric reflex refers to the retrograde flow of urine from bladder to the ureter and kidney above. The ureteral attachment is oblique between bladder mucosa and retrosal muscle, which creates a flap wall mechanism which helps in preventing the reflex. But when the submucosal tunnel between the mucosa and retrosal is short or absent, or there is defect during this type of wall mechanism, there is reflux of urine to ureter and kidney. Here, due to valve defect mechanism, the ureter is distended, leads to distension of the kidney. Urine will reflux back into the kidney. Reflux nephropathy remains most common cause of hypertension in children. In the most severe cases, there is such massive reflux into the upper tract that bladder becomes over-distended. This is called megacisterna megaureter syndrome. Occurs mainly in boys, unilateral or bilaterally. Approximately 1 per 125 children have duplication of upper urinary tract, in which rather one ureter will drain the kidney. Diagnosis can be done by contrast vesicocystourethrogram, radionucleotide cystogram, indirect cryptogram. Treatment is by surgical correction, laparoscopically or cystoscopically, or open surgical procedure. Now, hypospadiasis, it is a malformation in which the urethral opening that is present on the ventral surface of the penile shaft due to incomplete development of prepuce. These are the different types of hypospadiasis where this is the normal urethral opening, but if it is not present on the ventral border, this can be different types like glandular hypospadiasis, subcoronal, distal penile, mid shaft, proximal penile, penoscrotal, scrotal or perineal urinary opening is present. Complication of untreated hypospadiasis includes deformity of the urinary stream, typically ventral deflection or severe splaying. There may be sexual dysfunction secondary to penile curvature and infertility if urethral meat is proximal. Meatal stenosis and cosmetic appearance are also present. The goal of hypospadiasis surgery is to correct the function and cosmetic appearance. The ideal age for treatment or repair of hypospadiasis is 6 to 12 months due to risk of general anesthesia at this age is same to older child. In early life, the risk of general anesthesia is high. Penile growth over the next year is also slow. Child does not remember the surgical procedure and post-analgesic need are less. Complex cases, a buccal mucosal graft is used to create urethral mucosa. Now into the central nervous system, most commonly you will see with the hydrocephalus and different types of neural tube defect. In an infant, there is accelerated rate of enlargement of the head is most prominent sign. Anterior frontal is wide open with bulging scalp veins or dilated forehead. Eye will deviate downwards because of the impregnation of suprapineal recess on the tectum, which is produces the setting sun sign. Long track sign includes brisk tendon reflex, spasticity, clonus and Babinski sign due to stretching and disruption of the corticospinal fibers. Older children, the cranial sutures are partially closed. Patient may be present with irritability or lethargy, poor appetite and vomiting. Slow progressive form of hydrocephalus, change in the personality and deterioration in the performance. Percussion of the skull, you will see a crackpot sign or McEwen sign. Some may present with papilloedema in eye examination, abducent nerve palsy, pyramidal tract lesion. Flat occipit will suggest of Arnold-Chiari malformation and prominent occipit will suggest of Dandy-Walker malformation. I to suspect stridor, weak cry, apnea, which is relieved by shunting or decompression of the posterior fossa, abnormality of the gait. They may present with spasticity and convulsion, increase in the head circumference, incoordination in the childhood. and mental retardation. If undiagnosed and get complicated like vomiting, convulsion and respiratory failure. Diagnosis can be done by plain X-ray and MRI of the brain. Treatment is usually asymptomatic cases are managed conservatively, and we have to let the child grow and then treat. And if medically treated by acetazolamide or glycerol, or by surgical decompression by ventriculoperitoneal shunt. In Dandy-Walker malformation, it consists of cystic expansion of the fourth ventricle in the posterior fossa and midline cerebellar hypoplasia, which results from developmental failure of the roof of the fourth ventricle. And during embryogenic, 90% have hydrocephalus and agenesis of the posterior vermis and corpus callosum. There is rapid increase in the head size, prominent or occiput. Translation test of the skull is positive, long track side is present, cerebral ataxia and delayed motor and cognitive milestone is present. They are managed by shunting cystic cavity. We have to do ventriculoperitoneal shunt. Treatment, medical management includes furosemide, acetazolamide. Surgically, ventriculoperitoneal shunt or endoscopic third ventriculostomy can be done. Spina bifida occulta. It is usually a neural tube defect, a midline defect of the vertebral wall without protrusion of the spinal cord or meninges. Mostly they are asymptomatic and they lack any neurological sign. In most cases, there are association of any cutaneous manifestation like hemangioma, discoloration of skin, lump, dermal sinus or hairy patch over the back, which can be investigated by doing MRI and ultrasound. Most commonly involve vertebrae is L5 and S1, sometimes associated with the development of abnormalities like cyanomelia or T3 cord. Best screening in neonatal is done by ultrasound. Next is the meningocele, which is an open defect with herniation of meninges. Meninges herniates through the defect in the posterior vertebral canal or antennal surface of the sacrum. Here spinal cord is normal, and sometimes there is association of zygomalia and tethering of cord. In asymptomatic patient, surgery can be done after detailed evaluation, but if the patient presents with the leakage of CSF, the surgical correction is to be done immediately to prevent meningitis. Myelomeningomyelocele. It is the most severe form which involves the open vertebral column in the spinal cord, and incidence is 1 per 4,000 live birth. Hereditary cause can be there. There will be nutritional deficiency or folic acid deficiency, nutrition and environmental factors. 15% will develop hindbrain dysfunction, which includes difficulty in feeding, choking, stridor, apnea, vocal cord paralysis. If untreated, can lead to death. It can be prevented antenatally by giving folate supplements to the mother. Encephalocele, it is a protrusion of tissue through bony midline defect over the brain, cranium bifidum. Cranial meningocele, meningeal sac which is filled with CSF, and cranial encephalocele where there is brain herniation. Lissencephaly, it is a absence of cerebral convolution and poorly formed Sylvian fissure. This Sylvian fissure, this is the normal part, but if there is absence of convolution or poorly formed Sylvian fissure, it is diagnosed to the lissencephaly, which occurs due to the faulty neuroblast migration. They present with severe mental retardation, failure to thrive, microcephaly, developmental delay, and severe seizure disorder. Hypoplasia of the optic nerve and microphthalmia can be present. Facial features with syndromic faces, prominent forehead, temporal hollowing, antevertebral nostril, micrognathia. Schizencephaly, there is a presence of unilateral bilateral clefts within the cerebral hemisphere. The patients are severely mentally retarded with uncontrolled seizure, microcephalic with spastic paresis. Unilateral schizencephaly is common cause of congenital hemiparesis. Now we will see some minor malformations. These are some malformations which are not life-threatening but requires evaluation for any association or syndrome and correction. Some cleft lip and cleft palate. Here it is a normal part. Here we can see the cleft lip over the left side, bilateral cleft lip, and in palate we can see the absence of soft or hard palate. It occurs due to failure of medial, nasal and maxillary process to join, and incidence is highest among the Asians, 1 in 500. There is association of some maternal drug exposure, syndrome, malformation complex or genetic factor, and defect may vary from small notch to vermilion border to complete separation. Submucosal cleft palate is indicated by bifid uvula, partial separation of muscle with intact muscle, or papal notch at the posterior palate. Isolated cleft palate can also be present, which occurs in the midline and involve uvula and can extend to the soft or hard palate, exposing the nasal cavity one-sided unilaterally or bilaterally. Treatment is by plastic obturator is put for assessing the feeding and use of soft artificial nipple with large opening. Surgical closure is done at 3 months by Millard rotational advancement flap. It may be revised at 4 to 5 years of age. Post-op management, infant is fed with Medjon Bonser bottle. There is special bottle are available for giving feeding in cleft lip palate patient. Sequelae, there is recurrent otitis media and subsequently hearing loss can be seen in such patients. Cleft lip should be repaired by 6 months and palate should be repaired by 1.5 years of age, because after that there is a patient will start speaking and talking, so speech defect should not be happen, so they are repaired up to this age. Next is a torticollis, shortened neck muscle, also known as wry neck or loxia. It is a dystonic condition which is defined by an abnormal asymmetric head or neck position, which may be due to a variety of causes. It can be congenital muscular torticollis or acquired torticollis or spasmodic. Treatment is usually giving physiotherapy. Prevention is by correcting the position is important, and most pediatricians recommend parents repositioning the baby head every 2 to 3 hours during waking hours. Diagnosis can be done by evaluation of a child with torticollis, begins with the history, taking to the determined circumstances surrounding the birth, and any history of any possible trauma or injury during birth is present, or any associated symptoms are present or not. In treatment, there is neck and shoulder stability exercises, stretching, extended head application, massage is done. Now some other cosmetically deformed deformities like polydactyly, syndactyly. Polydactyly is usually an extra finger. It is the most common congenital toe deformity occurring in an incidence of 2 per 1000 live birth and maybe pre or post axial. There are seen association with Ellis-Van-Creveld deformity or Down syndrome. Treatment is for cosmetic purpose only, allow fitting with standard shoes. Syndactyly is usually webbing of the toes, may be complete or incomplete, most commonly seen in the third and fourth toe. Symptoms are extremely rare. There are associations like Apert syndrome or trisomy 13. Treatment if only associated with polydactyly or cosmetic purpose only, surgery is done. External ear deformity. Ear derived from the first and second branchial are developed during the first half of gestation. There are ear tag is preauricular tag is present here. There are some association with serious renal anomaly, mandibulofacial dystosis, hemifacial microsomia and other facial malformation. There may be some association with facial nerve abnormality and head. Tongue tie. It is also called as ankyloglossia, which is caused by unusually short and thick frenulum. Can affect the feeding of the child, speech and oral hygiene, and cause open bite deformity, and it can result in mandibular prognathism. It can be diagnosis may be difficult if not seen vigilantly. It is not always possible by looking underside. It is dependent on the range of genioglossus muscle. Treatment is done by surgery, frenotomy or frenuloplasty is done. Also, wait and see approach is advisable for a child between 6 months to 6 years of age. Frenulum may naturally recede. Then is clubfoot or congenital talipes equinovirus. It is a deformity involving the malalignment of calcaneo-talonavicular complex. Deformity is usually a plantar flexion, adduction of the forefoot and midfoot. The hindfoot is in varus and equinus position. It is common in patients with arthrogryposis. Incidences occur in 1 per 1000 birth. More commonly seen in males and bilaterally in 50% of cases. Diagnosis can be done by radiographic evaluation. Anterior, posterior and lateral radiograph are recommended. Common radiographic finding is parallelism between the line drawn through the axis of talus and calcaneum on lateral radiograph indicating hindfoot varus. Treatment is usually non-operative treatment is initiated in all the infants. Techniques including tapping and strapping, manipulation and physiotherapy, serial casting and functional treatment are done. Many patients will require surgical release performed by Ponseti method. Surgical realignment is used in management of clubfoot in minority of cases which has failed non-operatively or minimally invasive method, and neuromuscular and syndromic clubfoot that are rigid. Triple arthrodesis is reserved for painfully deformed foot in adults. Natal teeth are usually seen in incidence of 1 in 2000. They are present at birth. There is attachment limited to the gingival margin of the little root formation and no bony support. It is associated with cleft palate, Pierre-Robin syndrome, and there is history of familial history in 15 to 20% cases. Complication can be seen in refusal to feed or difficulty in feeding and pain. Now we will see some two association, vectoral and charge association. In vectoral associations, there is usually associations of vertebral anomalies, A for anal anomalies, anorectal malformation, C is for cardiac anomalies or congenital heart disease, T is for tracheoesophageal fistula, R is for renal anomaly, and L is for limb anomalies. Next is a charge syndrome. There is anomalies of association of coloboma of the eye, heart defects, congenital heart disease. A is for atresia or choanal atresia. R is for retardation in growth and mental development. G is for genital abnormality. E is for ear malformation and hearing loss. In this association, at least minimum 3 malformations should be present for labeling them into association or syndrome. 4 out of 5 criteria must be present for diagnosis of charge syndrome. So, I think I have concluded and taken up all the most commonly developed malformation and congenital birth defects and requiring their treatment in a short and brief period. There are multiple other different syndromes are available and associations are present which can be studied in detail. Thank you.